Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Lunatics. I am Phil. Lilith isn't here. None of the others are here, but I am privileged to have another first-time guest. This time, talking to Mark Russell, who has many stories out that I've been enjoying. First, it was Superman: The Space Age, and it's also right now it's Batman: The Dark Age. But the one that made me pull the trigger and say I have to talk to this man is the new X Factor book. I was like, I have to talk to him about this. Which I am not in the minority of, because I have at least two different people email me questions for you, and that doesn't
Oh,
always happen when I announce guests. So
great.
yes. So
Yeah,
yes,
happy to answer.
all right. So I was excited to talk to you about this before. And then last week I was talking to Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, and they were talking about all the X writers and the X books. And they mentioned X Factor. And I said, oh, yeah. I said, I'm talking to Mark in a few days. And they're like, oh, my God. They're like, you wait till you see what he has planned. They're like, everyone's mind's going to be blown.
Well, that's very nice of them. No,
Yeah.
one of the things when they offered me the X Factor title, one of the things that was really attractive, other than obviously writing an X-Men book, is just all the other creators that they were giving titles to. And that, when they told me who else is working on it, like Jackson and Colin or Gail Simone, Jed McKay, I immediately kind of understood what was taking place here. Like, oh, this is like going to be a whole. It's like this is like a diaspora. This is like there's gonna be all these different flavors of ice cream in the same ice cream parlor, which is the way you want an ice cream parlor.
Oh, yeah. So when you got offered the X Factor book, like how much came from Marvel, like either like membership wise or plot wise, and how much was you? Were you just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do?
Yeah, I was pretty much completely in charge of the plot. The way the I had to sort of negotiate in terms of the talent, in terms of the I don't mean the artistic talent. I mean the team members.
Mm.
Like I couldn't just pick my own mutants. It's sort of like like fantasy football or something. Yeah, everybody's got their pick. Everyone's got their team picked out, and so I had to sort of figure out who was available, who hadn't been picked yet to populate the team. But my editor Darren Sean was very helpful in that he just sort of let me know who was available. And I was trying to think in terms of the not only the power sets, like we need somebody who's really like a strong mutant, and we need somebody who's got like some sort of flight power, but also just in terms of personalities. What I really wanted was this to work sort of like a season of The Real World, where you take six complete strangers, put them together, and see what happens.
So yeah, I remember seeing the solicits for it, and I'm like, okay, I wonder if this is going to be like a humor book, which again I'm not opposed to. I love the Peter David run of X Factor, but then after issue one, and then especially after reading issue two, I'm like, if there's humor, there's some dark humor here, and I mean, there's actually like very serious topics, like yeah.
Yeah,
It kind of, I mean, it kind of surprised me. I was like, okay, I see where he's going now, and I, kind of had me fooled. I'm sure it kind of had a lot of us fooled.
but that's kind of the way I like to write. I feel like just writing something that's humorous and nothing else is sort
Yeah.
of like handing someone a stick of butter. I love butter. I like it mixed in with popcorn and corn on the cob, or you baking with it. But it's just an ingredient. It's just
Mhm.
something you mix in with other things to make them better. So I never really set out to just write something that's funny. I always have things I want to say, things I want to talk about, and something else in the story that is going on beyond it just being funny. But it's hard. I have also little interest in making something that's just sort of grimdark or bleak, and doesn't really have elements of humor in it either.
Yeah, it is nice when you get a little mixture of both. But and I was so happy when I mean, I like Angel, but again, Havoc and Polaris, especially in issue 2, I was like, oh, I love the, I love these two, their interactions, especially like on an X Factor team. So I'm glad you were able to get both of them for this book.
Yeah, I really wanted to sort of explore the dynamic of people like having a relationship that works and doesn't work at the same
Mm.
time. And so it falls apart, and then you have to sort of build it back together. But is it the same? A lot of it is about like how it's really about relationships and about how the world, how we can never really have a relationship with someone without the outside world intervening, without the outside world taking a toll on us, without us growing in sort of different directions.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I'm sure you probably had this in mind, but it really struck me in issue 2. It's like, oh yeah, like you could be in a relationship with someone, and all of a sudden you guys are on opposite. I mean, you should know who you're with, but it's like opposite sides, like politically or other societal issues. So it's
Well,
yeah,
yeah, and I think that the fall of Krakoa like pushed everyone reacted to it differently. All these mutants reacted differently. So mutants, a lot of these characters have undergone huge changes in just the last year in terms of how they're reacting to having that rug pulled out from underneath them. And of course, Havoc was dead for a while, so that tends to change somebody. That tends to have an impact on their personality.
yeah. And then even the whole he was with Madeline Pryor for a while. Yeah, that yeah, he went through a lot in the last year or so.
Yeah, it's been a busy 2024 for him.
Yes, it has. Uh, um. So, but yeah, I was kind of again, I was like, I loved Peter David's run, and I was like, oh, we're not going to get certain characters because I saw like Strong Guy and Multiple Man are over in the Dazzler book, but I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I like, but I mean, we do get
Multiple Man was one of the characters I wanted to use in mine. They were like, nope, sorry, he's taken. But I do think that despite their differences, the Peter David run is probably the one that shares the most DNA with this series.
I would say so. Yeah. Multiple Man's very popular. It seems like a lot of
It's a
people.
great character, and I thought for a strike force where you don't know how many people you're going to need, you don't know how many people you're going to need to storm the gates or whatever. It's a perfect compliment.
But I mean, again, you got a decent team here. I mean, Frenzy and Celia Reyes. I mean, I was like, oh man, he's pulling from the '90s. That's my jam, the '90s.
No, yeah, and I think that I want to sort of like play with the fact that this has been around for a while. So there's all these, there's these social media apps where you can go back and watch like the old classic X Factor, but it's sort of like how the 21st century has created a very different ball game for a task force like X Factor than it would have been in like the 90s or even like the aughts, because they have to deal with things like being social media influencers, or the prevalence of AI and the defenses they're facing and stuff like that.
And after, I mean, spoilers, after the massacre in issue 1, or is it going to be a rotating cast, or are you settling into like a more fixed cast here?
I would say it's an ensemble cast. So there's a larger cast of characters, some of whom rotate in and out of the team. People get injured and they leave for a little while, and they heal up and they come back, or they get fired and then like they earn their way back on the team or don't. But I would say the cast of characters is pretty firm. But whether or not they're on the team at any given point, that is
Mm.
up for grabs. That could change radically from issue to issue.
Hmm. And I
And
wasn't
new
familiar.
characters come in.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Granny Smite. I was like, she's a new character, right?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and she's an immortality mutant, which is a bit of a problem because she's also 87 years old. Uh, so that's not really the power set you want as a 87-year-old woman who looks and feels like an 87-year-old woman. And so she joins the team specifically so she can hopefully find a way to die. Um, and on the other side end of the spectrum, We also have the youngest team member in Zybert, who is 17 years old, and his power is an electromagnetic pulse that takes out the electronics of the other side, which is incredibly useful.
Mm.
But it's like getting a million X-rays every time he does it. So every time he does this little electromagnetic pulse, he shortens his lifespan, and so he doesn't know how many of these has before he dies. And so they're kind of the two ends of the spectrum of mortality, and what that would do to your mind, knowing that I need to do this to save people, but I could kill myself, or I need I don't want to be immortal. I want to die at some point, and maybe I can help somebody else by throwing myself in the fray.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think your X book, is probably the one where it, reminds people most of mortality and stuff, and new
Yeah, I'm
characters.
a real
Is
downer, and I kind of always have been. So
but
take
even
that.
with original characters, it's like, oh, are they going to survive this issue? Are they going to?
That's one of the things they said, like when they gave me the series, is like, there, even though there's no resurrection anymore, it's like we don't want this to be a safe book. We don't want this to be something where it feels like feels like Super Friends or something where everyone comes back to square one at the end. It's like these changes, some of which will be permanent, are well, all the changes are permanent, but some of them will be fatal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I get it. I just oh, this okay. This will tie into one of the questions I got from Emily Atkins 88. This one is right to the cuts right to the chase. She goes, "Is Farrell dead? Dead? I was so excited when she was announced as part of the X Factor, but I should have known better."
I will not comment on anything like that. Because there are some surprises, but I don't want to say, oh yes, there is a surprise where this character is concerned, or oh no, that's that one's still dead, because I feel like it ruins the story. I'm glad she's invested in the answer.
Yeah.
There will be an answer, but story questions about the story I like to have answered by the story itself.
And again, it's always comics. It's like how permanent is death in comics, especially the big two.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak for how permanent it is in my story, but they hand X Factor X Men off to somebody else. Who knows? Maybe they bring back the resurrection machine or whatever. I can't. I can only speak for myself and my own writing as to whether or not people are dead, or whether or not they're mortally wounded, but maybe not dead.
Yeah. All right. Oh, okay. Here's one with a few questions. All right. Marcerio Flores asked, "How how did you manage to develop your ability to be insightful in your comics? Does it come natural to you, or do you have to practice it frequently?"
The playfulness, I think, I think it comes from feeling sometimes that the things I want to talk about are maybe too dark or heavy, and then there's part of my brain, I guess you call it maybe uh, like borderline personality disorder or something, but there's part of my brain that just rebels against that. It's like, come on, it can't just be bleak. It can't just be dark. It's like even at the end of the world, people will still be cracking jokes and and have gallows humor. So I wouldn't want to write something that was just unremittingly dark. And I feel like the part of my soul that just feels like, well, we have to be optimists because what other choice really is there? That part always comes out, whether I want it to or not.
Well, yeah, I always say that. It's just like, you either got to, sometimes you just have to laugh even in the face of something horrible, or it's just, what
Right.
else you can do? Just sit there and cry.
You have to look on the bright side, even if there is no bright side, just because you are. Otherwise, you won't see anything.
All right. I guess that answered that other question too. Are you an optimist or a pessimist or other?
I think I'm an optimist, and I don't think it's because I actually believe these things or things. Everything will be all right. It's just because I need to feel like they will be.
Oh yeah, I think you have to keep it at it. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a strategic optimist. That's how I'm going to
Mm,
put. That's what I'm going to put on my business card.
I like that. Oh, and the last question: are you going to be at New York Comic Con this year?
I will not this year. It was just I'm doing the San Diego Comic Fest
Sweet.
because they're doing like a Rod Serling tribute, which I really want to be there for, and we're doing a 10th anniversary of my first book, God Is Disappointed in You. So I really wanted to be there for that and give my full attention. It's just too close to New York City Comic Con, but I fully intend to be back in 2025.
It seems like everyone is very busy right now because like everyone I talk to is either doing multiple comics a month or a comic or
You
two
got it.
here, another project here. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, unless you're, maybe Brian K. Vaughan, you can't live off of one comic a month.
Oh no. Uh, before I also wanted to talk to you about the DC stuff. Again, Superman: The Space Age already fully out. Batman: The Dark Age. I think we're getting close here to the end of that. So that's a little different because
Yeah.
it's like you kind of have to give like an alternate history for Batman and Superman, but it's like you kind of get the things that a lot of people don't get to do in the big two is you basically get to like plot out almost their whole life.
Right. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to do it with the Allreds. And
Yes.
my hope, if I could write my role in DC, would be to just let us keep doing this. Let us just basically create our own sort of pocket DC universe, through this series, and eventually go through all the characters and show them in these sort of like universes that die in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and how they deal with the fact that their universe is going to implode.
Yeah, that was going to be some of my questions is like, yeah, are you going to do more series like these with other characters and like the universe? So the Superman and Batman, those are two complete different universes because we do see Pariah show up in both.
Yeah, because
Okay.
that's his punishment. He has to go to
Yes.
every universe that's destroyed and experience it. But yeah, we're hoping to do a Wonder Woman one. We've
Oh,
pitched it.
nice.
So if they cut us off there, that's fine. I'd be happy with this as a trilogy. Ideally, we'd be doing a Flash one and a Green Lantern one, and Martian Manhunter one. But if they cut us off after 3, I will be happy with it. But I think the third one, the way I pitched it, ties everything together, ties all 3 of these universes together into one story.
Like if they just like let you keep rolling and rolling, would you do all those character series and then would you basically do your own version of Crisis on Infinite Earths?
Yeah, I mean, if they just told me right now, you have a blank check, we'll keep publishing these. We would plan many more of the series centering around many of the other characters, and yeah, probably one at the end that was done from the Anti-Monitor's point of view.
I like that. But
Or maybe one just about the Pariah.
And again, I'm sure in other things you've written, I mean, it's kind of probably the same. But like for Big Two comics, is how did these stories like how do you come at them differently? Because again, in the Big Two, it's like you get to write the first act, the second act, and you really don't ever get to write the third act. But in these, you kind of do. So
Yeah,
how do you approach
no,
this differently?
it's a unique privilege because I get to recreate their origin stories, and I also get to control what sort of end the characters have. So it's a really unique situation, afforded by the fact that they're all in dying universes, and I feel like that's sort of the magic of this series, that you don't really know, even though I'm retelling an origin story or talking about things that you've read about in other series. You don't really know what's going to happen, even though this is telling very familiar stories.
So, what was I going to say? Oh, I had a question. It just slipped my mind. Oh, so and then, like I said, Batman: The Dark Age is out right now. Superman: The Space Age. Did they collect? Are those all getting collected? I mean, I'm pretty sure everything gets collected now. But did they collect Superman: The Space Age?
Yeah,
Okay.
everything gets collected.
Yeah.
There will be a Batman Dark Age collection the same way there's a Superman one. And then hopefully, if we get to do Wonder Woman, they'll eventually release an omnibus with all of them together in one beautiful
Oh,
tome.
nice.
What I would like to see is like the deluxe edition, where they create these big books just for no other reason than to give Mike and Laura's artwork this grand
Oh,
cathedral presentation. Because some
you
of
ever
his
do?
splash
Oh,
pages and 2-page spreads. It's like this looks like a Diego Rivera mural to me, or this is like this belongs. They should put this in the Notre Dame Cathedral when they rebuild it.
wow. And do you have any notes or any behind the scenes stuff you could put in for any like scripts or anything you could put in there?
Yeah, my stuff would probably it would pale by comparison, but yeah, just like little like here are the notes going in the character, or here are some sketches I do. I think one thing that would be really cool. I don't know if they'll let me do it because there'll probably be some intellectual property right issues. But I sent Mike a bunch of photographs of sort of reference photos, some of which he used, some of which he ignored because he's a genius, so he's got the privilege of just going his own direction. But like photographs I used of how Gotham would look, or how I wanted the villains. I thought it'd be cool if the villains were all based on sort of British glam rock stars from like the 70s, like Elton John, or
Oh, nice.
Mark Bolan or David Bowie. Uh, so I would love to include some of those reference pics that I sent to Mike that I wanted the characters to sort of be based on, but they might not do it because we don't own these photographs.
So who's your favorite character to write in Batman: The Dark Age? Is it Batman or is it someone else?
I think weirdly the character that I feel kind of drawn to when I'm writing them, even though it's not like major character, is the Pariah.
Hmm.
Just because I feel like he's the one who feels like he doesn't have to lie because he realizes this is all going to be destroyed, so he can just sort of bluntly tell people exactly what he's thinking, or tell the truth, and just sort of doesn't care anymore. I feel like he's probably the most fun character, right? If you'd asked me in Superman Space Age, I probably would have said either Lex Luthor or Lois Lane, just because I feel like those
Hmm.
voices strongly in my head, almost as like the angel and the devil on my shoulder. Uh, but I think overall, the one that I feel like I like lucky, or the one I kind of look forward to writing is Pariah.
I almost feel bad for Pariah because it's like, even if he tells everyone, "Oh yeah, it's all coming to an end," no one believes him. They're just like, "Oh no, he's crazy. I know he's eccentric. No, he's
No, I think he's a crank. Yeah, in fact,
yeah."
that's his introduction. In Superman, he's being interviewed for the Kooks and Cranks article in the Daily Planet. It's like, oh, here's another crazy guy.
But it's even worse than the Batman because like he's making all these guys money, and they're just like, "Oh no, he's eccentric, but he's making us money, so just let him babble, man. Do whatever he
Yeah,
wants. He's making money."
don't you don't have to listen to him. Just take the checks. And yeah, that's kind of my approach to him. Is that like in each one of these universes, it's sort of like Groundhog Day. He's sort of like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. Each time he has to relive the death of the universe, he sort of does a completely different thing with it. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them he decides to like try to save it, to stop it. Some of them he decides to just sort of enjoy it while he can. Some he tries to just make a bunch of money. Each universe he approaches a little differently because he just dreads having to relive this over and over again.
Do you think there would be enough story, or would you even want to tell the story, like a whole mini series like this, just of Pariah? Just basically him going from universe to universe and how each different
I think
universe.
that would be really cool. Maybe like as like a one shot or as a special. Just do an issue of him going to different universes and failing each time to save it, and just to show his progression, the impact that has on his psyche, to see the death of the universe and the planet he loves, like over and over.
Oh yeah. So let's see. We covered X Factor. We covered. All right. I'm gonna ask because everyone has a creator-owned book. So, what creator-owned book are you working on right now?
Well, I'm working on a few. I'm working
Oh,
on a World War II story called Dog Tag, which I'm really
oh,
excited for, which follows a group of soldiers, basically from D-Day to like the end of the war, uh, throughout their campaign in the campaign in Europe. And doing that with Mad Cave. I also have a sci-fi anthology series that hasn't been announced yet with Mad Cave,
hmm.
with several artists on board, including Ryan Alexander Tanner, who is like drawing, I think, half the issues. And I'm really looking forward to that one because I've always wanted to do a science fiction anthology, but there's nothing I think that scares a publisher more than the word anthology, because it's like, well, there's no recurring characters. It's like we're not People aren't going to be able to get into a character. They're not going to tune in from issue to issue to see what happens to this character, which is true. But the good side of that is that you can tell completely different stories, and it's the story or what you're the in this case sort of the fable that you're trying to tell. That's the important thing, not the character. And I think it's turning out incredibly well. So I can't wait for people to see that. We're also getting a book version, the collected version of Traveling to Mars, which I think may be the best thing I've ever written, and that
Oh,
comes out in next month or in November. Um, the collected complete edition of Traveling to Mars with all 11 issues and extras,
hmm.
and a forward by Patton Oswalt. So
Oh,
keep an
wow.
eye out. Yeah.
So, so what's the plot of that? Why do you say that that's probably the best thing you've ever written?
Well, the plot is about the first manned mission to Mars, and the first person they send to Mars because they discover all this natural gas on Mars, this huge bubble of energy. It's going to dwarf anything that we have on Earth, and so whoever claims it is going to be, the richest company on the planet.
Hmm.
So the company that wins because they find a terminally ill man. They can fly to Mars. They don't have to bring him back. And the story is told through the diary of this man as he's going to Mars, and it's all about his regrets and the things he wished he'd done on differently on Earth.
Hmm.
And he's gone from being like a pet store like assistant manager with terminal cancer one week to being sort of like the most famous man in the world the next week.
Hmm.
And he's accompanied on his flight by two Mars rovers who have artificial intelligence, so they're like people basically. And and he feels kind of like a fraud, like he doesn't deserve this, and he's sort of screwed up everything he's ever tried in life. But to them, he's a god because he's the only human they've ever met, and they're sort of just in awe of him.
Hmm.
So it's a very human, very tragic, but also very, I think, hopeful story. And I think why the reason why I consider it maybe the best thing I've ever written is because it's not really plot driven. It's more about, told in flashbacks and in thoughts, and it's really more a meditation on why things have meaning, even though everything will come to an end.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you said so that that's getting collected or it's coming out soon?
Yeah,
Or, yeah.
Traveling to Mars, the book, they're both in like uh, hardcover and in soft cover trade, come out in November.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, that sound that I want to. Now I must read that. I
Good.
love
I'm
it.
glad it was the intended effect.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, no, I love stories like that where all just someone just an
I mean,
ordinary.
things do happen. There's a plot,
Yes.
but it's not a bunch of like spaceship battles in
No, no, no. Yeah.
dune buggy chases. It's very much about the characters.
Is it a lot of flashbacks to how I got
There's a
from
lot
how
of
I got from point
flashbacks,
A to now? Yeah.
yeah, about his childhood and his life on Earth, and about how he got to this situation, his failed marriage. A lot of flashbacks, and then some twists along the way, but which I don't want to spoil. But yeah, I think it works. I am of course biased in this, but I think it works well.
Oh,
I think I caused it to buffer or something.
oh yeah, it was kind of a little bit, but yeah. All right, hear me? I think we're good.
I'm back.
All right. So
Yeah.
yeah. So okay. Now I see why it's that story's yeah, that might be your favorite because it's not a lot of I need an action scene here. I need this here. It's like you basically just to get to go in
Yeah.
your head and yeah. So probably
It's
the
the
most.
one where I feel like I can just tell the story however I want, and it's the one that allows me to like sort of function as a writer.
It's the one you put probably the most of yourself into. Just the you don't have to worry
And it's
about
very
yeah.
personal. Yeah. Draw upon
Yeah.
a lot of my own thoughts. I mean, I love everything I write, but this is the one I felt like I could just sort of write without any sort of outside pressure.
So is that I mean, is that less pressure, or I mean, sure, it's different pressure, but is it more scary, less scary that it's like they're not it's not like a Marvel or DC character where they're already pre-existing, someone else came up with them, ever, when it's a story that you came up with completely, everything springs from you. Is that more comfortable, less comfortable?
As a writer, it's more comfortable. As somebody trying to make a living, it's probably less comfortable, because it's like, you're trying. It's not as hard to convince somebody to read like a Hawkeye story than it is to read a story about this terminally ill pet store manager that they've never heard of. That one's a harder sell.
Well, these days, because that's what I say. It's like it's it's such a catch-22 these days, because it's like there are so many good things out there, so many good projects, stories, and otherwise out there. But then it's like there is so much out there. It's like it's hard to find stuff just because there's such an ocean
Mhm.
of content
Right,
out there.
right. It's uh, option paralysis.
It is. Well, more like financial paralysis, because again, it's like,
Yeah, right. It's like I can afford, five of these 300 comics. Which ones are they going to be?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, it's like, well, I mean, prices on comics, when they go up, I'm just like, oh, I hope the money, some of that's trickling down to people like you and your artists, and
Sometimes.
sometimes, okay. All right. Before I let you go, is there any other projects you're working on, or anything you want to promote? Any appearances? Any social media?
Yeah, follow me on Blue Sky. My handle's at Manris. I'm also on Threads and Instagram, same handle at Manris. And my website is markrussellbooks.com. And yeah, another thing I'm working on with Mike Fian, who did the art for Snagglepuss, is it's called A Lucky Ham, and it's a story about a silent film star in the 20s and about how sound came and destroyed all the silent film stars. Um, as uplifting as that sounds. But that I'm not sure exactly when that's coming out, but it's going to be with Dark Horse, so it'll be our first Dark Horse title, and I'm just thrilled not only to be able to write a story that I'm interested in, but to work again with Mike, who is an artist I had really wonderful experiences with.
So is the easiest way probably follow you on social media to see when new projects are coming out, and
You'll hear all about it. Catch me on Threads or Blue Sky or Instagram.
all right. All right. Mark Russell, everyone, thank you so much, sir, for your time. Again, I talked to so many writers. I know how much limited time you have since you're probably working on 4 projects at once. Thank you so much.
Well, pleasure to do it. Happy to be here.
And again, if you ever want to promote anything in the future, just just reach out to me, and how to get a hold of me, and we can set something else up. So,
I will take you up on that.
uh, please do. All right, everyone, go get the books. All right, thank you, everyone. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, no, it went well, I thought.